So the idea we had with Christian was to get you, maybe all the people that were attending here today, is basically knowing that we run a bug bounty program the last year, and we end up with a lot of bypasses. So that's why the best bypasses ever. Yeah, but they were extremely useful. It was a very interesting thing that we lived to. And yeah, I'm going to describe a little bit on the process and how we did the setup and where were the outcomes. And of course, for the CRS, basically, what did we learn as a project? So yeah, did you say bug bounty? The first time we heard about this was that Yahoo was planning to contacted us for performing a bug bounty on the CRS. So we did one setup initially. I think it was end of 2021. And we tried to get people working out. Of course, it's our project is public, so the only thing you need is people to report problems. But apparently that didn't get so many attentions. There's so many attention from the community or the hacker community or in the process. And we did run it for a bit without any real report. So it felt like a disappointment in the I mean, you cannot run a security product and expect that everything is going to work well. And this was a gold opportunity for us to get some real feedback, right? Because sometimes we know from integrators and from other people, oh, we are having this problem, let's solve it. But you don't know necessarily from the attackers that they are saying, oh, you actually have a bypass here. Yeah, just let me create a pull request to fix your bypass, right? That's not a normal option that's happening every time, right? So we did a second round, and that happened to be in April 2022. What we did focus at that second edition, if I may, was on providing a different tool. So pen tester hackers can basically, researchers, how you may name it, but basically we provided something for them to test. So this is one of the ideas that was in the April 2022 edition. It was run by Integrity, and it was a really cool experience interacting with all the guys in Integrity, all the team in Yahoo, and they were extremely helpful, extremely good discussions. We really learned a lot in the process. It was extremely exhausting for all the team in the CRS. Even in these 2 weeks that the thing were run, we have daily discussions on the problems, because we needed to analyze all the reports in a limited amount of time. And for everyone that was part of this, it was really, really, I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was really extremely, sometimes even difficult to define if something was a problem for the time that we have. So it was really interesting. So for this, so the first setup was basically, well, you got the CRS, you just get it from our website. Please set up whatever you need, use your own tools, and then report. That didn't went well. So we came with the concept of doing a CRS sandbox. So the idea is that let's create something that can be added to this kind of tooling, and we provide that to hackers so they can attack that sandbox. So when we went in the CRS meetup in Switzerland by end of 2021, we did design the CRS sandbox in a way that it's basically something that is running that can be attacked easily, and but also you will get, as a response, you will get all the rules that are matching. So kind of what you saw with the Corazza playground, but basically you can curl it. So you curl that URL, you send whatever payload you want for your attack, and as a response, you will get all the rules that are matched. You can see that in the CRS documentation. It's very well documented how to interact with the sandbox. And the other thing that you can do is basically run different versions. So basically we have the supported version, which is 3.3.4, but also we are running the dev version. And the idea of this event was to test basically what we are having in V4. So I think this needs a whole setup, and how we did the CRS sandbox is going to be for some next edition of this meetup, because I think it's really interesting. And we keep adding things to the sandbox. The idea is that with the things we learn in this process and the tools we use, we keep upgrading this project. So for this initial version, we added the sandbox, and we added a very well-known vulnerable project, which is the OWASP UShop. It's a JavaScript application that it's being run by one of our colleagues, Bjorn Kimmenish, and his team. And it was well known by the community, so they could use it for doing decent attacks and getting the functionality working on whatever they were testing. So the cool thing is that we used all the open source products and projects, and everyone will be able to read all the code and see whether they want to attack, or specifically where they wanted to target things or not. So this was basically the sandbox and the extension that we did for the bug bounty program. We have a lot of numbers coming from the bug bounty. Some of those are boring, so I just grabbed the ones that are more interesting. We had 185 total findings, which seems not that much, but for 2 weeks it was a lot. From those findings, the real valid findings were 157. But the most important thing for us was that there were 8 critical findings. And that was really critical. So basically they affected the different ways. They affected the engine. So a patch was needed for mod security to fix the issue. Or they were critical for the CRS in that there was a complete bypass in paranoia level 4. Which is really a critical thing for us. So it was amazing the result we got from the bug bounty in regards to the critical findings. But then there is a lot of work after this. So yeah, we got this. We have 157 findings. We have a critical. So now what do we do? And this is kind of our phase after the bug bounty ended. In a way that, okay, we have a lot of work to do now. What else? Can we have more developers around? And it was not at the moment, it was like, let's try to organize ourselves and get heads down and try to fix them. So there was the level of complexity of the problem was indeed really, really different between the findings. Some of the findings were really easy to solve. Like, for example, they were not matching in a very low paranoia level, sorry. And we needed to add something to a list. So adding something to a list is a very easy process, right? Suddenly you were matching GDB as a process, and then there is GDB 10 or, I don't know, GCC 9, and then suddenly there is a GCC 10, and you were not matching that. So yeah, of course, you have a bypass, but it's really easy to fix. You just add a GCC 10, or you rethink the rules that are doing this, so you can match any number after GCC. So we can agree that that's an easy finding, and I mean that's a finding that has an easy solution, right? So those were basically, some of those were actually solved by the hacker themselves, because we allowed them to send pull requests, and we asked them as a part of the bug bounty process, so they were allowed to send the pull requests. So they solved some amount of the problems we had, right? Which was an interesting way of seeing it. I don't know if I will do the same the next edition, because on the other hand, it put additional stress on the CRS developer team, because we needed to evaluate that the pull requests were properly created, that the tests, because we were really, really focused on giving the quality that the thing deserved, that the tests were right and the thing was properly created. So we added ourselves additional work without knowingly before, and it was really a pain for the team. So we had meetings afterwards and tried to focus on what to do next, or more how to do it. We knew we wanted to solve everything, of course, that it was solvable by the team. Of course, for some of the findings that we needed to change the engine, we still need to go to the path or talking with the vendor, Trustwave, and fixing that. And that was it was reasonable. It was handled really, really well by Trustwave, and it was a very good dialogue between the team and Trustwave. So it was really good. The first idea was, okay, we have this bunch of findings. What's the first thing we should do? Well, because we were talking about quality, why not create tests? So the first idea was, let's create a bunch of curl tests, and we curl all the attacks, and we have a repo that we can tag and say, now we have all the 157 findings. Let's have at least 157 tests, right? So that way we can prove that things are not matched. But then when we solve, we can run the test again and see that we are blocking, right? So that was the first idea. And we created all the 157 tests. All the findings were covered in basically 471 separate unit tests, which is a lot. And in fact, we're cold call. So those are a lot of tests. But the good thing is that once we started adding the fixes for the things that we were fixing, then we can start testing and testing periodically and see how we are evolving. So right now, I think it was executed probably 15 days ago, more or less. But what we can see there is basically we are mostly there. We are blocking like 99.15% in paranoia level 4. We should be blocking 100%. Still no blocking 100% as of today in the morning, I think. But we are constantly updating this number. We moved to a 90% in coverage in PL1, which is reasonable for PL1. But this is the good thing, right? Because we wrote all those tests, now we can constantly check that, did we fix this or not? So it was a really good idea to have the tests beforehand, so we can start seeing progress or not. Of course, we have a very big sheet with all the columns marking all the things on the flows. So that's another thing that we decided on how to do it. Difficulty. This was really a challenge in many aspects. For example, what we got there when we had all these 157 unique findings, it was a challenge to see on the ones that were really difficult. We were basically tagging things on the confidence level we had on the complexity of the changes we need to do to fix that problem, right? So we started with all the simpler ones. Again, lists is very easy to update, and all the things that were very straightforward to create a pull request or a patch and update the test. Those were the first that we did, right? But then suddenly things started being more difficult because languages are difficult, complexities arouse when we try to find and match some of the findings. And then from this category, we had also, from these 4 categories, we also had additional restrictions. For example, for some of the findings, it might have been easier to create a particular regular expression using PCRE specific syntax. But then we challenge ourselves because we have nothing to do to do it without PCRE only solutions, right? Because we said we want to support other engines, Corasa, for example, and we want to support RE2 as a regular expression engine. So this was a little bit challenging on selecting what is the solution. Is this solution a good solution or not? Iterating on that solutions were also very fruitful discussions between the team. For me personally, I think the RCE was the most complex thing that I've ever saw because it took a long time, and we rewrote a lot of the rules in 932, mostly 932 100 and 150. Those are completely gone now, and we changed that to newer rules with a different approach. And I think that those are going to be challenging, and we don't have results right now from the community, but I think those rules are going to be really. I expect some changes in those rules in the future. I don't know what is the best approach for them, but we did generalize a lot in some of those rules. One of the things that we did was very, very focused on the length of the attack in a way. So we split rules in commands that were more than 3 characters and commands with 3 characters or less, which was something that we didn't do in the past. But in the end, I think it gives you better protection for some of the things we were trying to do. So by splitting those rules with that technique, we now have a better coverage for things that are trying to be executing a command, a remote command with bigger strings. Well, we are probably going to match more characters, but I'm afraid of false positive there in a way. It's very difficult, but yeah, they might happen. And these are in PL2. What else? JavaScript. JavaScript, for me personally, it's a pain. It's a language that it's broken in a way. But I know there is a lot of code base out there, and it's widely used and it's very performant. So we need to support it. There are a lot of frameworks also. But yeah, we thinking about the JavaScript evasions is mind blowing. So this just thinking on this is really, really complex. The solutions were very interesting, and you can see those. They are very well commented in the code. So honestly, for me, the worst one were SE. Findings. So writing a test was the initial step, right? When we write a test, we prove that the problem is there. And now what? So we need a way of tracking findings. we didn't have this before, but also we never had 157 problems at once before that needed to be tracked separately, but also in a private way, because this was a private bug bounty run by, at the moment, we couldn't bring that to the table. So that was really a challenge for us. How do we manage this in a private way, but also keep the findings and keep everything flowing? So we created something internally to manage all the findings. And this was I think this was one of the good things that we did also. We needed this to track findings. There has been some reports after the bug bounty finish, and we use this process, and it really works for us. And because for example, we have the security@coreruleset.org, where you can actually send an email with your problem. So what we do with that is now we create an internal issue for that, and we start with a tracking number. So now we have a tracking number, and we can add that to every step on the process. So whatever is this, we create an issue. If we can make things public, we make the public part. If not, we create a pull request that it's been hidden, and then it's been merged once we publish whatever it's out there. If it's a critical vulnerability, we have a CVE process where we generate a new CVE and create whatever is needed from that. So it was really interesting for the project and on basically dealing with all this flow on new findings. Another thing that we were trying to make is creating a test referencing the finding. Is some of the things that when you see tests now, you will see a code there that it's matching some finding that we have. So now we can have a real track between the things that we are testing and see that things are fixed, because in our test we are matching that specific pattern and ID, and that was really needed to follow all the flow in our improvised basically security findings flow. Well, what did we learn? We learned a lot. I don't think we are going to use the same patterns if we have bug bounties in the future. I think the juice shop was really very open. I mean, there are way too many vulnerabilities in juice shop, and we are not protecting everything. That's confusing sometimes for people that it's using, because you have application logic problems that you cannot solve at the web application firewall level, of course. So being more restricted in what we allow to test, in a way, it's more beneficial for us because we have a clear scope. Making that public is also a good idea. There are some other projects that have a WAF, and they provide you with a simple test that you can use and ideas on how it can be used. But also you want to cover specific types of attack, right? So you will have your SQLI, you will have your cross-site scripting, SSRF, and others, and you have categories for each one, which are very clear and very easy to read and attack. And I think we are going there for the next bug bounty, because this was really a very broad process. And one thing that researchers commented a lot is like, we might be attacking something, but because juice shop doesn't allow us to run this, then this might be a problem, but we are not seeing it, right? For example, if you're targeting, a PHP application, but then you're using JavaScript, it's never going to work, right? Or Java, or whatever you're trying to attack in the backend. Yeah, you might have an attack for that, but it's not going to work. So that was one of the learnings that we have. It's like, we need a way to provide a more control way for people to execute things, control for both sides, right? So they know this is a target for attacking, but also we know how are we controlling this and what are the rules we're going to match. If not, it's going to be way too open, and it's not going to be beneficial for both parties. Tracking. The tracking was awesome. In the end, we ended up learning a lot on being really precise on what we're tracking and how we're tracking, and doing all the workflow between things. Right now, we thought about using GitHub has for open source project, they have a specific tracking for security issues. So you create something, you press a button that says create security issue from this, and then we'll fork a private copy of the things that you can use. So we are using that for some of the tracking now, which is good because you're using the same interface, and it's something that you just have it as a private thing. So it's not published until you see it published. Of course, it's more. It was, I think the feature was more for coding things. So once you decide that this is a problem, then you will have an automatic CVE and others, because GitHub can create new CVEs in a dynamic way, which is super cool. But I don't think we are going to use that much between the CRS. But the flow internally, I think it's good for us, and it's at least it worked in a couple of times we use it after the bug bounty. So that's a good thing. I don't know if I mentioned this of the tests, but tests. We need tests. So having a test for each and every finding was really life-saving, and we need to be we need to have tests for everything. It's one of the even negative tests for the thing we are trying to find. It's really a game changer. It's really a game changer. As I say, bug bounties, better scoping. We need to think about having better scoping and get a small scope. At least for us here as developers, is going to ease in on the problems we can handle. Of course, we fix a lot of problems now. So each time we run a bug bounty, things are going to be more difficult, right? Or at least we expect that in a way. So this is one of the things we expect to have in the future: more focus, scope, less findings, and basically that's most of the thing that we learn for this. That's all I wanted to say about the bug bounty. I don't know if you have questions. We have as part of the bug bounty, one of the things that I remember was the show and tell. It was super interesting, because one of the things that you not necessarily have is the mind behind the finding, right? You normally have a finding, and that finding is you just have an issue created and you just see one part. But I was really, really surprised and really delighted on how people was trying to find things, and the strategy behind the findings, and the way the researchers conducted themselves. For me, it was mind blowing. They really, really have. Some of them, of course, struggle with finding some things, but then other guys just read the HTTP standard from scratch and try to find all the holes they can. So that was amazing, and the level of work they did for this was really, really cool. And the show and tell in particular was really fun, because we learned a lot from that, from the process itself, on how to target specific findings, or how to target specific rules. The other thing that we need to remember is we are an open project, so they have everything there, so they can test locally whatever they want. So in the end, it was a real nice participation in this Yahoo bug bounty, and we are really very grateful for being there. And we are looking forward to the next one in a way, hopefully with less findings and more productive work for us. Hopefully after we come out with the CRS v4. But that's all I have. I don't know if you have specific questions. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but we prefer that it's recorded, probably.
Touching on something you mentioned about the kinds of issues that were opened, I thought it was interesting. A lot of the some of the critical issues were specifically around how we handle, or how mod security handles multi-part HTTP requests. And some of the work they must have done to find that, like injecting carriage returns and new lines at unusual places, that was just, my God. And that had been in there for 15 years in the engine, just nobody had ever noticed. So it was really impressive, some of the work they did. It was interesting. I think Integrity said that we were the first open source project that they'd actually worked with, as opposed to a commercial company. And that was really interesting because the pressures on us to do that work as an open source project was really high. And I think we were lucky that we had particularly yourself and Walter who were able to do all of those daily calls. Because there's no one's paid to develop on CRS. We all do this as a voluntary project. So the fact that we were able to put in hours and hours of work and like 2-hour calls every day for 2 weeks, that was, yeah, as an open source project that we could deliver that was, I think, really impressive. And to touch on what you said about the PRs, there were issues with how long I think we had like 3 days to review the PRs on like 180 issues. And there was money on the line for the hackers as well, because they got something like $1,500 bonus if they got.
I don't remember. I don't think we can talk about that.
Oh,
so this
apologies.
is going to be beep. There's going to be a sound there.
Sorry. There was a financial bonus for if they submitted a perfect PR, and for the project to review 150 plus PRs in 3 days over the weekend was just bananas. But on the flip side, we got one of the hackers since joined the project, so we managed to get a developer out of that as well. So like it was good for developing as well.
Yeah, we've been blessed with another developer, and his knowledge is mind blowing, and he's been written some of the more complex rules that I've been. And some of the JavaScript issues he targeted a lot, and his knowledge is really knowledgeable. So yeah, we are glad that we came this long way, but it was exhausting at the moment, but now we are more confident. You can never say that you're perfect, and that's not the idea of this project. But we feel way more protected in some sense with the things we are trying. Of course, CRS4 is not out yet. We are expecting a release candidate so people can start testing and seeing if not only we are blocking, but also the amount of false positive. We need feedback. We will need feedback from the community and see, we are doing well, or no, maybe this rule is super cool, but it might need to be in paranoia level 3 or so. So that's going to be a challenge for us. We still need that to happen. And I think there are going to be changes because of that and the amount of false positives we have. So yeah, it's still a long way. At least we have all the coverage we want, or we are going to have all the coverage we want for the bug bounty, but there will be movements. I expect to be movements around still. Hopefully not, but yeah. We might even need to split rules if they are too demanding on blocking or not. So there is some path ahead, but it's a different one. It's the one where we rely on you as a community to give us results on all the hard work we've been done in the last, I will say, 2 or 3 years. But this is going to be the greatest and latest.